What's going on, Box Bros, and welcome back to Rage's Cantina, the Star Wars podcast. We've been AFK for quite a while, I know, but we're back, baby. This time, we have a very, very special guest joining us to talk about why he hates the prequels and why he thinks I dislike the sequels. That's right, it's an OT Andy Smackdown on this episode of Rage's Cantina, ranked the best new Star Wars podcast of all time.
I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
What is going on, Box Bros? It is the Box Man here, and welcome back to, you guessed it, another episode of the Star Wars podcast. We're bringing it back, baby. Joining me tonight are two very special guests. You know them, you love them. Tomba, the one and only. How you doing, Tomba?
Hello there.
Okay. And a very, very even more special guest, the one and only, the man himself, the savior of the universe, Icosiol. How you doing, Ico?
I don't have a meme to play.
That's okay. That's all right. You being here is enough. That's enough.
Okay. I only do it because I'm the soundboard guy.
He is a soundboard.
Oh, okay.
Guy. Yeah, he does it a lot. So, we're going to be talking prequels tonight. We're going to be talking original trilogy. We're going to be talking everything, pretty much. Ico's got a very, very special theory as to why he doesn't like the prequels, because he's an OT Andy. I'm going to tell all y'all now, he's an OT Andy, okay? But just like Jedi Gamer, how he's a sequel-loving troglodyte, I accept Ico because I love him, even though he's an OT Andy. So please tell us. Go ahead, Tom.
Because I know you've mentioned this to me before, but I've already forgot. I asked you what OT Andy means, the Andy part, and you explained it. I forgot.
It's just like a saying, like for somebody who's like die hard for a certain specific niche thing within a fandom. Like he only likes the original trilogy and nothing else. Like, so it's like, yeah. So he's
That's not true.
Well, okay, so maybe like a few other things, but for the most part, it's the original trilogy, right? Or am I wrong?
Yeah. My opinion is probably going to piss off a lot of people.
I can't wait.
But that's okay.
So Ico and we were doing this whole thing now because he has a theory as to why he doesn't like the prequels, and he's gonna lay it on me, and we're gonna just hash it out. You know, swap opinions, probably kill each other a little bit, but it'll be at the end of the day, it'll be good. Tom is going to mediate, and with that, let's get it started. So go ahead, Ico, explain to everybody here what that theory is, as in depth as you want to go.
Okay, so disclaimer: this is not my idea. I heard this from a guy named. He runs Sly Flourish. I do a lot of RPG stuff, and he has a whole channel that's based on tabletop role-playing games, and he brought this up as an explanation. And I was like, you know what? I think that's it. I think this is why I don't like the prequels, but the younger generation loves the prequels.
Right. Okay.
And so what it is for me, growing up with the originals, being a kid watching the 77 Empire and Jedi, like that's my nostalgia, right? But in that storyline, as I'm growing up, there's a lot of unanswered questions. One of the ones I go to is Boba Fett as an example. We know nothing of this guy. We know he's just a badass. That's it. We never see his face. Mm-hmm. His voice is cool as hell. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't mess with this guy at all. So
he was one of the coolest characters. Like that.
He was.
He was great. Yeah, everybody loved Boba Fett.
Absolutely.
They could have killed him a little better though. Like, I think he died in a really lame way. Not that he did die, because apparently he didn't die, but you know, with like Han was just blind and he just hits him and he just like, oh, he goes into the Sarlacc pit. So that could have been better. But
I agree with that.
Other than that, he was a really cool character.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely a disservice. Mm-hmm. So maybe I should say Empire Boba, but I digress. Mm-hmm. But here's the theory. So fast forward all the way to the prequels. And we start getting a lot of questions now answered, right?
Origins and whatnot, right?
Yeah, my generation, we've already answered these questions. We also had the expanded universe books, Heir to the Empire, all that kind of stuff, which were great. But largely, they were big in the fandom as far as I understand it. Mm-hmm. So we grew up with that, but now all of a sudden, answers, like I guess you would say official answers, start coming out with midichlorians and all this other jazz that were like, well, this isn't as cool as what I came up with in my head. And so there's this disappointment of, well, in Heir to the Empire, this was happening, but now you say this, and then this takes away from what the Force is, and so forth. So with those questions being answered and not meeting what we have all just kind of built up into our heads, we go into the prequels just like, this sucks. But there's also something else that's happening, though. If you go back and you watch the originals, there's a certain kind of campiness that comes with them. Movies that were created in, late 70s and in the 80s especially, there was a corniness to them, right? And then when you start watching that as more of an adult and you start seeing it in the prequels, you're like, oh boy, this is rough. And so I think it's a combination of those things that makes my generation largely look at the prequels and just like, I can't get into this. This is terrible.
So for you, it's like an expectation downer. Like you thought it was going to be one thing, like the Clone Wars, for example. That must have been the biggest thing for you guys, because I remember when I first figured out that, like, oh yeah, they mentioned the Clone Wars in episode 4, which, is the start of the whole fucking thing. So it's like, that's crazy that they just casually bring up the Clone Wars and they never, like, talk about it again. So that must have drove you guys crazy for years. Like, what the hell were the Clone Wars? That sounds crazy. And then I guess...
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like...
Exactly.
I think, personally, they did justice to the Clone Wars. I thought it was epic as hell. It's like, you see all these big battles and, like, all this crazy shit. Like, I thought it was pretty epic. But I guess you thought it was like what did you think the Clone Wars was?
Well, I thought the way they did the whole Clone Wars, I think that was cool, but now I'm kind of going back to the whole Boba Fett thing, where it's like, okay, now you just answered that Boba Fett is just a clone stormtrooper? Really?
Basically.
That was the badass? He was cloned off of people that can't hit shit?
He was, so the thing about Boba was he was an unmodified clone of Jango. So he was like because the other clones are all modified so that they obey and follow orders, but they're not stormtroopers. Stormtroopers are actually just hired people, because the Emperor got kind of cheap after he took over the universe, and he started phasing out the clones. So, he's a clone, but he's not a stormtrooper. The stormtroopers and the clones are two different things, believe it or not. So
yeah.
That doesn't make me feel any better.
Okay.
Everything, if you think about it, everything that made Boba Fett cool came from Jango.
Jango was the original, and Jango was actually really fucking cool. Like, if you read the books and the comics with him and play the video game, the Jango Fett video game, oh my god, he is a badass.
You can't really compare like Jango or Boba to the clones, because the clones are like a watered down version of them,
And Boba is honestly a watered down version of Jango, if you really want to.
Yeah, but why?
I don't know, because it's really a product of his raising, probably, because like Jango died. I mean, again, did you? So here's the question I gotta ask before we continue, Ico. You did watch the prequels, right? Like you watched them through. Okay. So you remember in episode 2?
I watched all 3 of them in the theater.
Okay, so you remember in episode 2 where Jango dies literally in front of Boba, and Boba's like holding his like severed head in his hands?
Yeah.
Okay, so you do that to a kid, he's gonna be fucked up. Okay, so that's why Boba is so silent. That's why he's kind of like that, because like he went through some shit. And it's like, if you watch the Clone Wars show, it shows more of like what he went through. He went through a lot of crap, man. He was basically raised by bounty hunters. The kid was raised by bounty hunters. Now, Django's origins are not as well known, but he probably had a better upbringing than Boba did. And so I think overall his training was better, his mentality was better, everything about Django was better, to where he was one of the best bounty hunters in the fucking galaxy. It took Mace to kill him, which Mace is one of the best Jedi in the galaxy, so obviously, but I digress. My point being, that's why Boba's just not quite up to par with Django. Really.
Yeah, see, if you think about it, Django says, because again, we don't know much about his origin, but he says, I'm just a simple man trying to make my way through the universe, right? Boba is a kid who's raised in a sheltered lifestyle.
Yeah.
He's not really seen the universe outside of Kamino, and he's just not had the same upbringing. You know, it's like nature versus nurture. Like yeah, you can clone Django, but will he be exactly like Django? Well, I would say no, because his environment was different.
So everything you guys are saying right now is actually making my point.
Okay, go ahead. How?
Because I'm learning too much about Boba Fett.
So you like it better with him being a mystery?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's interesting.
He is far more dangerous. What I come up with in my head of how badass that character is it's
more
far
interesting
better
than
by
it being
having
explained.
a mystery.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
once you start answering those questions, this is why Jango Fett was actually better in Boba. I'm like, no, fuck that.
Let me ask you.
Can I cuss on this podcast?
Oh yeah, you can cuss all you want. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So go ahead. You were saying.
Yeah, let me ask you this. So does that also transfer into Anakin and Vader as well? Like, would Vader have been better as a mystery, or did you want to know the origins of Vader and all that?
We already knew from Empire Strikes Back, technically.
To a degree,
Yeah.
but like you didn't like say it. Like you didn't like.
And Return of the Jedi.
So Hayden Christensen gets a lot of heat for his performance as Anakin, but I tend to agree with Kevin Smith when he said, no, this guy's like a teenager, and he played a teenager perfectly.
Yeah, he's
like,
a whiny teen. And then if you look back, Luke was the same way. He was a whiny kid too, until he got his shit together and everything became a master.
Yeah.
So,
He
but
didn't even want to leave Tatooine. He wanted to go to the Tashi station or whatever.
and fuck the power converters or whatever. So here's the thing. So he played the character completely perfect because not only was he a whiny teen, but he was a whiny teen that didn't have a father, was ripped away from his mom, like was all confused in the head, like Anakin was messed up, dude. Like he wasn't all there, and that's why he fell to the dark side and became Darth Vader. Because only people that are mentally messed up and all there turn evil and do bad things. So it's like, it's kind of the point. Like, you know, he wasn't going to be this like stable, stalwart guy all the time, because if he was, he wouldn't have fell to the dark side. He wouldn't have took the temptation of wanting to save Padme. You see, it was because he was torn away from his mother, he never got over his mother, and so that's why he latched onto Padme so hard. You know, it's a whole thing, and it's like, my point of this is why I think the writing in the prequels in the background, you know, is actually genius, because it does all this so well. It sets up everything so perfectly for Anakin to fall to the dark side and for everything to go the way it did. For like, you know, this just now maybe some people don't want to see the story of how the Republic fell and how the Sith rose and how all that happened, and the origins of Boba and the origins of Vader and the origins of all that. Maybe some people would rather it be a mystery, and I can understand that. I really can understand that, but I think the story was told well, but again, I grew up with it. But at the same time, I did watch episodes 4 through 6 first. I did. I've said this
a little different.
I've said this multiple times. Yeah, I was a kid though, and I didn't really know what was going on. I was looking for the pod race scene. That's why I watched it.
I have a question.
I was looking for the pod race scene in episode 1, man. That's the only reason I watched 4 through 6.
Which can I say something about the pod racing?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm in the theater.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this, and you know they got those sounds from Indy cars.
I think I heard about that.
Indy cars from the 90s. In fact, there's a part where I'm sitting there listening, and I'm going, he's exiting the hairpin at the Long Beach Grand Prix. That totally took. Once I heard that, it just completely took me out of what I was watching. I'm like, all I'm hearing is Indy cars.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
So I have a question before. We already moved away from it, but I didn't want to interrupt.
No, we can go back.
No,
Let's
go
not
for
get.
it.
Let's not try to get lost in the sauce here. But go ahead, Tom.
Okay, so what would you say to OT Andes like yourself? Like, the same. I mean, people the same age as you who had the same experience as you, like they grew up with the originals, right?
Gen X, baby.
What would you say to people like that who did want to find out the origin of Boba Fett and did get that in the prequel movies, and they obviously, assuming that they liked it, I don't know, but like they wanted more and then they got more. Like, do you think that's bad? That they should not have wanted more, like, to know?
No. I think it's totally fine. I think it's totally fine. And if look, we're all different people and we all have different opinions. I am totally fine with anyone being like, no, I like the Boba Fett and that I got in the prequels, and I love the Boba Fett show, which in my opinion was atrocious. But
Great.
yeah,
It could have been a lot better. It definitely could.
it does not exist in my mind.
Yeah,
Does not
it's
exist.
not
I'm sorry. He
canon
does not.
to
He
me
does,
either.
yeah, he does not write about
Yep.
that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Acolyte. Anyway,
Looking at a lot of what Disney did, but yeah.
yeah.
No, I think it's good that he went back and he did the prequels. I thought it was cool. It was not my liking. I could not get into it, and we just discussed some of the reasons on why that is.
Right. So is the biggest thing just that you were let down from expectation, or is there more to it? Is it the more mainstream OT Andy complaints of it was bad acting and it was like things like that?
Well, yeah,
like
the
cheesy
acting
writing?
wasn't great, but largely the acting comes from the directing. So I don't know. And then everything was all computerized. I don't know. It felt fake watching it. Now, here's where I piss people off, because I'm definitely in the minority in this.
Okay.
I think Rogue One is equal to Empire.
Equal.
Yeah, I was waiting. Yes.
I mean, it's
And
not
Empire is
bad, but
absolutely-
Maybe, but I don't know if I'd ever say it was equal.
oh my
Yeah,
god.
no, it was fantastic. That is a prequel that is definitely done right. The way they did that as well, like let's just take the visuals. The visuals, I felt like I was watching the era of A New Hope, of it being made in the 70s. Like the designs and everything was matching, and it looked like a world that was, or I should say a universe that was kind of deteriorating, dirty, like the originals. It wasn't all bright and shiny like the prequels, which I understand why they were bright and shiny in the prequels. It was trying to show a different kind of era, an era of prosperity,
Right.
before the Empire. I get it.
Right.
But Rogue One, the way it was shot, the way the cinematography was, the way the acting was, felt so much better than what we got in the prequels. And the events that happened in that, if you think about what they had to do, excuse me, if you think about what they had to do in A New Hope, it's just this scene where she says, many people died trying to get us this information. Okay, so now I'm already putting into my head, oh my God, what did they have to do? So they had to meet that expectation. So in Rogue One, they met it by, spoilers, killing off everybody. Nobody survived. That totally matched everything that was already in my head.
Can I point out a technicality here? Mon Mothma says many Boffins died to bring us this information. No Boffins died in Rogue One, not on screen anyway. It was all like regular troops. I was because so if you've played the games like the originals on PS2, you can play as a Boffin spy, right? And he's like a furry bipedal person who can also go invisible. And I was expecting that in Rogue One. Because I'm like,
Okay,
when
so
are we ever gonna see these Bothans? And they never did them.
There's a confusion here, Tomba. So the Bothan spy thing, I think, was that for the original Death Star plans, or was that for the Death Star 2 plans? Because I think that might have been for the Death Star 2 plan. The Bothan spy.
I think that is Jedi.
Yeah, I don't think because they just because the only people that died to bring the original Death Star plans were whoever, I guess, in Rogue One, and then the R2 got a hold of it, and then they brought that was it. So yeah, I think the Bothan spy thing was definitely Jedi. So you might be misremembering, Tomba.
It is Return of the Jedi. I'm misremembering.
Well, there you go. Okay,
Well, then
so
I won this debate. Fantastic.
No. So
I'll always admit.
let me get out my point. So it's gonna come down to that. The style of Star Wars, what it actually isn't going to be for everybody, because some people just kind of want, like, how do I put it? Some people just kind of want a sci-fi movie, and that's not what Star Wars is. It's what I always say, a space opera. That's what it is. It's a space opera, an opera in space, you could say. And George always wanted it that way, but because he had different directors on the original and it was a different time and all that, the originals aren't as operatic. Is that a word, operatic? I think it is. As the
It is today.
Okay.
It is a word, yes.
Operatic. So the originals aren't as operatic as the prequels are. George directed all 3 of the prequels, and he went all out with the opera part of Star Wars with the prequels, more so than he did with the original trilogy, because part of it was because he had the technology with like what he wanted to show and the world building and all that stuff, which I don't care what you say, the world building is better in the prequels. Just because
You're
of the
stealing
technology.
all my points before I can make them.
Just because of the technology, the world building in the prequels is insanely good. All the different worlds and planets and species, it all expands exponentially during the prequels.
I'm going to disagree with that.
Okay.
I want to make my point.
All right. Well,
soon
write
before
down
you
your
steal all
points,
my
boys. But I'm gonna get all this out first. So
You're stealing all my points. I'm gonna have none left.
I'm sorry, but I'm
I
almost
mentioned
done.
all these yesterday, and you've stolen them, you bitch.
I'm almost done. But so the world building's better, and like I said, it's a space opera. So a lot of the dialogue is like that. It's not meant to be. So the reason why the prequels have so many memes, and Ico said this before we started recording, guys. I'm gonna out him right now. I'm throwing him under the fucking bus. Do it. He said the reason that there's so many memes that comes out of the prequels is because it's a joke. No. The reason there's so many memes that comes out of the prequels is because it's so quotable, because all of the lines are like sound bites more than they're lines. And that is one of the beautiful things about Star Wars, is that so many of the sounds are like so iconic in Star Wars, like a lightsaber activating, or a blaster bolt, or a ship flying by, or like any of that stuff is so recognizable as like, yeah, that's from Star Wars.
Yeah.
The same goes for...
Ico, you can't say it's a joke, because there's so much that you can quote from the originals as well.
It's true, yes. There are plenty of original trilogy memes, but anyway, don't let me get off topic. So all the voice lines are like that too. They're the same as the sound bites, as far as like, an engine revving or whatever goes. They're quotable because they're meant to be like an opera line. Like opera lines aren't like like just plain. It's not like Candid. It's not Candid at all. And most people like Candid, and I get that because it's more realistic or whatever. Star Wars isn't supposed to be realistic. It's a space opera that takes place in space, that's supposed to show the differences between good and evil, and like, family, and like the ties that bind everybody together. And it does this in a setting of like, the Force and like space and all that stuff. But
it's a sci-fi fantasy. Right,
but it's not meant to be. It's like, it's a telling of the story of Anakin before it's anything else. So I don't know. It's like
I'm good with all of that.
Right.
I'm good with all of that. But no, go ahead.
So just that, like, a lot of the lines that people say are wooden or bad acting, it's not supposed to be put under the same lens as most other movies. Like, you're using the same lens that you would put over, like, I don't know, Tom, but give me a quick, like, sci-fi movie that, like, I don't know, like a Star Trek movie or something, or like I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, just like any other movie from a AAA director that, like, is a sci-fi movie that, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're putting Star Wars under the same lens as any other blockbuster, because, like, that's
Aliens?
Right, like Aliens, like, where it's like candid acting, like how the people would act in a real life scenario of, like, the alien attacking people, and that's what you want to see. But it's like Star Wars goes beyond that. It's a mythos. It's literally a myth. It's a modern day myth. It's like when the Greeks would tell of, like, the ancient gods, and it's like, if you would tell that story, it wouldn't be some candid slop that, like, regular fucking directors would punch out to, like, show, you know, it's like beyond all that.
Okay, let me ask you a question then.
Go ahead.
So George Lucas directed the 3 prequels.
Yes,
He also did A New Hope.
he did.
He did not do Empire or Jedi.
Right.
Empire and Jedi, actually I would say more Empire, has a different feel from A New Hope, correct?
Correct.
Does A New Hope have the same kind of feeling as the prequels?
Yes, sir. If you go back, take off the ℂ𝐿ociN goggles for 10 seconds, Ico, and go back and you watch it, and you really compare the two, you'll find that the dialogue is just as cheesy. You'll find that Luke is just as whiny as Anakin. You'll find that it's just as memeable. You will find, like, they are so similar. It's ridiculous.
I agree with that.
Yeah. But
I totally agree with it.
and that's what started it all too. The only real difference that so many people fail to see, because they got swept up in the tornado of hating on the prequels because it was like the cool thing to do, right? Because it was like the hate train rolling in, and it's like, you're either going to be loving Jar Jar or you're going to be hating him. And it's like, back then, how could most people say, oh, I'm going to love Jar Jar? I grew up with him, so I didn't hate on Jar Jar. I thought he was kind of funny and a little cute character. I didn't think he was a big deal. But it's like, of course, most of the old heads are going to be like, fuck that, like, that's stupid, I'm going to jump on the hate train. And it was like a snowball effect that just kept going. But if you could take off the goggles for 10 seconds and just actually look at it, you'll see how similar the two are. And they rhyme and all that, you know, like, that's a whole thing.
I would argue that C-3PO is on the same level of goofiness as Jar Jar.
They are. There's so many characters that are the same.
Don't
Can't go with you on that one.
Why?
Can't go with you on that.
Okay,
No,
why not?
No way. There is a
Let me
very big difference between the two.
Let me give you 2 scenes, right? And you tell me why one is and isn't goofy, because I think they're on the same level, right?
Go ahead.
So the first time we meet Jar Jar in the forest of Naboo, right?
Yeah.
Where he's like, the ability to speak does not make you intelligent, and he's being goofy and falling over and doing all that tongue shit, right? Goofy. Now I'll compare that to when R2 and 3PO are lost in the Tatooine desert, and they're bickering, they're robots and they're bickering like a married couple, and then 3PO kicks him and, like, walks off. That's so it's so silly. It's goofy and silly. It's on the same level. How are they different?
Well, because it's more so
because Jar Jar is being silly. He's the one that's sitting there like, hoo-hoo, you know, is total buffoon with everything. But C-3PO is getting angry at his buddy that just is going, hey, I'm just going to go this direction. Yeah, so he's getting angry.
It's a more mature silliness. It is. It's a more mature silliness. And so this is like where the biggest problem comes in, because George has said multiple times that Star Wars is more for kids than anybody. And that's kind of not true, because the way he wrote it, it really is for everybody. It's not just for kids. But when he came around with the prequels, he wanted to make it more for kids than he did the original trilogy, and that's why he put in characters like Jar Jar for the kids. So obviously the adults aren't going to like him very much. And maybe they could have tweaked him a bit and made him not as goofy, but I just don't think he's that bad. I don't think he's as bad as people make him out to be.
I think.
Again, it's going to come down to...
How old were you when the prequels came out?
8 years old.
Okay.
So I didn't think he was that bad.
I was a real young kid. Like, I think when did Empire come out? Was that 82?
82, yeah.
I was 4 years old.
Wow.
So I was almost 7 when episode 1 came out, and I saw all of them in theaters.
Yeah, so it's just a different generation, and I think it's like, I mean, obviously the prequels aren't perfect. No movie is perfect. No story is ever going to be perfect. But I think a lot of the times people are willing to overlook. Like, if you grew up with something, you're willing to overlook it. And I lived with that theory for a while, and I thought about it, and I went back and of course I watched the prequels a million billion times. I compare them to the original trilogy. I almost said the sequels, God forbid. The original trilogy, and there's so many similarities between the two. The only real difference is the setting. Like you said, it's newer and shinier in the prequels, and there's CG. There's all this CG and all that stuff, and you know, because it's new technology. George said he had a vision, and he was limited, like Mr. Stark said, he was limited by the technology of his time when he did the originals, and so he couldn't show his true vision. When the prequels came along, he had the technology to show his true vision, and so you could say the prequels are closer to George's true vision than the original trilogy. Sorry, I had to say it. Go ahead, Tom.
I need to make my grand theory before there's nothing left, because you're just picking it apart at this point.
All right, go ahead. I won't say anything.
Okay. So this was what my theory was before he, like, you know, cherry picked pieces from it, and like now it's just gonna sound like I'm copying him, but it's quite the reverse. So, my theory for why you don't like the prequels, right, is, and I'm going to explain why this doesn't apply to us with the prequels, because I know that you're saying the reason you don't like the sequels is the same reason for us. Sorry, the reason you don't like the prequels is the same reason for us not liking the sequels, and it's not, and I'm going to explain that. Right. So, first things first, you didn't like the prequels because you had preconceptions. You had your own preconceptions of how it would be and all this other stuff, right? I would say that's on you personally, because people who don't have preconceptions are able to enjoy, you know, the originals and the prequels, right? So I would say that's a you issue, because that's your preconception. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying you had preconceptions that weren't met. But if you go into it with no preconceptions or expectations, then you'll have a great time. Now, the reason you didn't like the prequels is because it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was heavily edited and changed constantly, right? There was constantly different like versions and remasters and edits and VHS X upgrades and whatnot. And it's like Ray said, it's because George had a vision, and obviously he made it as good as he could when he did, but when the technology came around for him to improve on it, he did. Right? Which is why you get a lot of people complaining about how Yoda was made CGI, or you get a lot of people complaining about Jabba being turned into CGI and stuff like that. I just think that's like nitpicky, and I think ultimately at the end of the day, the newer version should be the better version, because it's the more accurate to George's vision version, and that's all Star Wars really is. Like, it's his vision, it's his mythos, right? It's more accurate like that. Now, the reason that mentality does not apply to me and Rage with the sequel movies is because it wasn't George's vision, it wasn't George's script, and he did have scripts for the episodes 7, 8, and 9, like, you know, written, but they didn't use it. They didn't want to use that material. They didn't want to use a lot of the source material in Star Wars at all. You know, they basically said fuck you to the EU. So, you know, they shot themselves in the foot by doing that, because they've since had to retcon a lot of the things they already retconned, which is stupid. And Disney's Star Wars is not George's Star Wars, right? But you can say that the originals and the prequels are George's Star Wars, right? Would you put the prequels on the same level of badness as the sequels, in your opinion?
No, the sequels are so bad I never even watched episode 9.
Thank
right,
Christ.
that's what I'm saying. So it's like, even with your preconceived notions, you can still see that the prequels, while you don't enjoy them as much as, you know, the originals, are still way better and more accurate to George's vision than the sequels. And that's why me and Rage really don't like the sequels, because it's like if J.K. Rowling died and then some random person started making new Harry Potter movies with you know, diverging from all the source material. Then it's just not Harry Potter, it's something else. And that's what the conclusion we always come to is that Star Wars pretty much died with Rogue One. Rogue One was the last good Star Wars movie, the only Star Wars movie that Disney made that was good. Everything else after that,
think it was good.
I thought it was good.
I like it too. Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, he liked it as well. We that's what I'm saying. We were pleasantly surprised by Rogue One, and when we first saw the trailer for Force Awakens, right after having the Rogue One treatment, we were excited. We were like, oh my god, like they're gonna do a good job. And then we watched Force Awakens. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad. There was a lot of potential there. There was a lot of canvas for them to paint on. And then they ruined it, and then they butchered it, and they just couldn't follow their
Ruin
own
Johnson
story.
came in and ruined it.
They just shat the bed big time.
Big time.
And then I'm pretty sure it was episode 8. I think they realized they shat the bed with episode 8, and then they moved away from making a Star Wars movie to just pandering to a certain demographic of fans that like those movies, which are all the woke people. And that's what they did.
Yeah.
And they needed a villain, and they just decided, the writing's already so bad anyway. Let's just have Palpatine return somehow. It's just dumb. It's just so dumb, so poorly thought out. George's movies were so well thought out. He pretty much, based on episodes 4, 5, and 6, already knew how episodes 1, 2, and 3 were going to go. Disney just didn't have any clue. Didn't have any clarity.
Let me summarize real quick everything that Tomba just said. So, in short, most OT Andes don't like the prequels because of their own preconceived notions and illusions that were made up by critics and shitty people at the time that really didn't like George and all blah 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 blah. That's most of the reason. Not saying you, but most of the reason why people don't like the prequels. It's just an illusion. It's not real because they're actually genius movies. And our reasons are that the sequels are actually bad and not George's vision, and so we have a legitimate reason to not like it. Most people's reasons for not liking the prequels are completely made up. It's just because again, they're looking at it with the wrong lens. They're again, and I guess with your case, the preconceived notion that made them not enjoy it as much. And yeah, it's you really do gotta go into it with an open mind to enjoy, because it does diverge from the original thing, because it's a prequel, and it's before the Empire and all that, so of course it's going to be a lot different, but at the same time it rhymes with the originals as well. It really does. There are a lot of similarities there too. So, but it adds so much to the whole thing. It adds so much goodness to the Star Wars universe, the prequels did. It added so much more diversity. For instance, the double-bladed lightsaber. That was not a thing until episode 1. You got to admit that's cool. Nobody can say the double-bladed lightsaber isn't fucking cool. You're crazy.
Let me go back to what you just said, though.
Go ahead.
Okay. Who are you to say that people that don't like the prequels are coming at it with, the wrong angle?
Because
actually, what was the exact words you said? You said
preconceived
not the
notions.
Most, well, not just the preconceived so that's from what you said, that you had preconceived notions and you got let down. I'm saying that most people they went into it with a wrong lens. They went into it what happened. This is what happened, because the reason I say this.
Who are you to say that?
Because
that's your opinion, but there's no way to follow that up.
No, there is, because I go off of all the research I've done, of the reviews at the time, of the testimonies at the time, of everything that happened during episode 1. When episode 1 first came out, Ico, and you can go back and research this yourself, everyone loved it. Everyone and their fucking grandma was freaking out about episode 1. They loved it. They loved it. They loved it. You look at thousands of interviews I've seen of people coming out the theater and saying, so how'd you like the movie? Oh my god, man, it was so amazing. Oh my god, the lightsaber fight, it was so good, dude. Oh, I fucking love it, man. Literally 99% of all reviews were positive in the first few months after episode 1 released. Then guess what happened? The fucking reviewers came in, the critics, all the fucking the original OT Andes came in with their bad reviews of Jar Jar and blah blah blah, and Anakin's bad acting and all this stuff, and everybody got swept up in it. It was like, oh, I liked it at first, but I guess it left a bad taste in my mouth. Yeah, you know, maybe Jar Jar was kind of annoying. And it's just like this whole like contagion, like a mind virus that like overtook people and like made them be way too harsh on the prequels than actually was deserved. Also, the actors got harsh treatment than they actually deserved. Fucking the guy that played Jar Jar almost killed himself. Jake Lloyd never recovered. He's like still fucked up to this day.
Jake Lloyd, the kid who played little Anakin, he got bullied and harassed. He's now mentally like unwell, and he's like, I'm not exaggerating when I say this, he is in like you know those like mental therapy hospitals where it's like you voluntarily check in and it's like you can't leave but you can walk around kind of thing. Like he's in one of those. Like his mom goes and visits him. That's what those people did.
So in short,
hold on. Let me say this. So you don't think it's possible that people could have been so hyped up for it that they could have gone into it and come out of those first showings like, that is awesome, and then watched it again, and then watched it again, and then watched it maybe a third, fourth, fifth time and kind of realized, wait a minute, this is actually not that good at all.
Judging by the evidence, I would and what has happened recently, I would say that can happen and has, but most of the cases are just because they were influenced by all the negative reviews and critics and stuff that were forced at the time. Because people jump on the hate train. This is what, give me 1 second, Tom. People jump on the hate train. They love to do it. It's more popular to hate on something than it is to like agree with it and like it. And so it was like a snowball effect of hatred. Because if you look now, everybody's back to loving the prequels. Like the pendulum has swung the other way because people see how shitty the sequels are, and now they realize, wow, what we had actually wasn't that bad. And most people are waking up. I see so many people that are like, you know, yeah, I used to hate on the prequels, but now I love them again, and I don't know why I was ever hating on them. And it's like, well, because you were fucking swept up in the mind virus of like hating on them. And
well, there's truth in that being able to happen. I mean,
yeah,
it's propaganda basically.
Yeah, people got propaganda. Now, I'm not saying it was you, because your case is different because you had preconceived notions of stuff, and it let you down ultimately. So
no. Actually, now wait a minute. I only told you what my opinion. What do I say? My opinion of what I think was actually happening on why Gen X has, because really it would be Gen X, looked at the prequels and was like, this ain't so great. So I think that what I brought up was has a big factor of why it's not well received. My personal opinion on why I don't like the prequels that much is, and you brought it up, yeah, the acting was not that great. I thought the cinematography was very poor. It had some great moments, yes. The double lightsaber was cool as hell. That was awesome to see. I still watch it. I'm like, that is badass. I wish they did more of it.
Yeah, the lightsaber fights are the best in the prequels. They're the best.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
But it's all those little things, and a story being told so slowly that I was just like, I can't do this. Just fast forward to Revenge of the Sith, where he starts killing a bunch of kids, and there we go. Let's go.
Well, this is like, so the story being told slowly shouldn't really affect much, though, in my opinion, because you already know what happens. So that's kind of why it's like you got to kind of just enjoy the ride and see how it happened. And in order to show properly how it happens, you got to do it at a slower pace. You can't really just like rush the story too much. Otherwise, you're just going to end up with not much story to tell. But
I have a core piece of evidence that you both aren't considering, and it applies to both of us. So this applies to the original movies and the prequels. A lot of people don't really take this into consideration. They gloss over this. When you're watching a movie as a kid, you're seeing it through the eyes of a kid, right?
Yeah.
And then when you watch that movie again as an adult, you're noticing new things that you like that you never noticed as a kid, right? Now, people did it for both the originals and the prequels, right? People who grew up with the originals, they watched it as kids, loved it, amazing, and then they rewatched it as they got older and turned into adults, and then they were discovering new aspects of the movie, like the political undertones, or like how serious it was, and all this other stuff, like things you didn't realize as a kid, and it gives you a higher level of appreciation for them, right? Now, you go in watching the prequels, you no longer have that mindset of a kid. Right, so you're not able to enjoy it because the movies are primarily made with kids in mind, but the movies are so well crafted. That's what I'm saying. It's like eating a cake, and then you go back a year later, and the cake's there again, and you can enjoy it again. But this time you're tasting new flavors. So basically, you're going in to the prequel movies, and you're not enjoying it as an adult because. One, the kid's made for kids, and you're just not. The kid's made for kids? No, the movie's made for kids. The movie's made for kids. I'm like stumbling over my words. I'm struggling to get my point out. The movie's made for kids, and basically, you're not able to fully appreciate it as a kid would, right? But saying that, you're also noticing things that kids wouldn't, right? Like all the political overtones, and there is a lot of political talking that goes on in all three movies, the prequels, right? And a lot of people, adults, think that's boring. They think it's boring and the movies are dragging on and it's taking too long and there's just too much useless dialogue. That dialogue is discussing the climate of the universe they're in. Like, it's necessary for you to know how things are happening and all this other stuff. Like, if you're a kid, you're not paying attention to any of that. You're just enjoying the cool lightsaber fights and the goofiness and all that stuff. So I feel like you're missing one half of the appreciation for Star Wars movies when you watch them as an adult, right? You're not able to scrutinize the original movies to the same level of scrutiny that you hold the prequels to because you've got the nostalgic memories from when you was a kid, basically with the rose-tinted glasses. You're not able to see it quite as critically as you are seeing the prequels because of that. And I think if you considered that it goes both ways. Like, we grew up with the prequels, so we loved them as kids, and we watched them again as adults, and we learned all these new things, and we had a higher level of admiration for them as a result. But we're able to see these things that I guess the OT Andes just either aren't able to or choose not to, right? And
that's what I'm saying. Most of them are stubborn. It's they won't. It's they're okay, I don't like it, and that's the end of it, and I'm never watching it, and I just but so it's normally this wouldn't be that important. It's okay, you don't like a movie, who cares? But it's with Star Wars, I feel it's I don't know, if you were reading Homer's works and you like the Odysseys of Ulysses, but you didn't like something else he wrote, and you're just well, but it's part of that same story. It's well, how can you like that but not like the rest? How can you like some of what he wrote, some of the mythos, and not the rest of it? I feel
that's why we love them so much.
I feel it's
You're talking about nostalgia.
Yeah, a big part of everything is nostalgia, unfortunately. But
right.
If you can look past nostalgia,
that's why there's this generational gap, though. Yeah. That's why my generation tends to like the originals more than the prequels, and why your generation tends to love the prequels.
But I feel I love the prequels even if I didn't have the nostalgia.
Well, this is the thing. This is the thing, right? When you grew up as a kid, you only had the originals. When we grew up as a kid, we had the originals and the prequels. I watched the originals first as a kid, before watching the prequels, and then I watched the prequels. And then when I turned into an adult, again, I watched all the originals and all the prequels. And I love them all. I love all of them. That's what I'm saying. I have this level of appreciation for the originals and the prequels. And for some reason, the people who grew up with the originals don't have that same feeling towards the prequels. And the only common thing that variable that I can see is that we were able to enjoy the originals and the prequels as kids, and then as adults, whereas you weren't able to enjoy the original as a kid and as an adult, whereas the prequel you only saw it as an adult. I think that's the missing link.
Did you enjoy Indiana Jones?
I did.
I'll be honest. I never really watched Indiana Jones.
Yeah, but I have.
Okay.
Yeah,
it would be like a movie. You would turn the TV on and it'd be halfway through, and you'd watch 10 minutes, and then just get on with your day, and that would be about. That's all I've seen.
Okay.
I know he has crystal skulls and a big ball that chases him, and some little.
All right, then. So
Chinese kid is in the second one.
So you've watched Indiana Jones, all the movies, right?
I have, yeah.
Which ones did you watch first?
I think I watched Temple of Doom first, and then I watched Covenant.
Okay. Did you watch the original?
Yeah.
Or the first one, I should say, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
What's your opinions of those?
They're great.
Those first three.
They're fantastic. They're classics. They're really good.
What did you think of Crystal Skull?
I thought it was fantastic.
Really?
I thought it's everything that an indie movie is. It's over the top. It's got, because every single, I don't want to and I'll get into it with you on this too, because like people are so annoying, and it's the same thing with the prequels. They'll say, "Oh, aliens? Really, dude? Well, why aliens?" It's like, bro, every single, the only thing I want to say is every single indie movie has something crazy that happens at the end that's like otherworldly or spiritual or like paranormal. Like their faces melt in the first one at the end, dude. The fucking temple, the Alima, and he's ripping out the dude's heart. That's fucking supernatural. How are aliens so far off from that, guys? Come on. It's not that weird.
Let me make this point.
Okay,
let me make my point on this.
Go ahead. No, Tom, let him talk.
My point will take 5 seconds because I've not seen the movies.
All right, go.
It makes sense to have aliens and Nazis in the same movie together because the Nazis were all about aliens and ℂℍ𝔸ℕ𝔼. That would not be a red flag for me, and I've never seen those movies.
Okay, now let me make my point here. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was not well received.
Oh yeah, I know.
I also watched it. I watched it in the theater and was like, what is this? This is so campy. Let me go back and watch Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then realized, holy shit, this is so campy.
It was always campy, dude.
Always campy. Right. It's always campy, but I grew up with the originals.
Do you think it's all rose-tinted glasses then? Like it's that?
I think, yes. I think that is a big factor of it. Is those, and also it's like, okay, so you grew up with movies in the 2000s, correct?
Correct. And the 90s. I mean, I watched a lot of 90s movies.
Right. Go back 20 years and, well, God, the 80s were so great with movies. But if you go back just 20 years and you watch movies in the 80s, there's a distinct difference between movies in the 80s and the 2000s. You go back to my generation, man, that was the 80s, and then watching my parents' stuff in the 60s. It was so hard for me to watch anything in the 60s. I feel like there has to be something similar with your generation, right? Going back 20 years, these 80s movies.
No, there are some 80s movies that I really enjoy and that are really good. It's like 70s and 60s, like you said, that kind of, it's harder to enjoy.
25?
Yeah, no, it's the same. I think it's just like movies have gotten better, and in some ways they've gotten worse, and everybody's different, like you said, and nostalgia is definitely a big part of it. My only point is that I, like, for all this, I really see the genius in the prequel. I see, like, and I'm talking about underneath, if you don't like the acting because it's too operatic, I get that. It's not for everybody. I get it. But, like, underneath it all, if you look past it, the actual story being told, how they set up all the characters, how they set up the whole story, how, like, Anakin's fall and, like, the fall of the Republic, and, like, how Palpatine, like, orchestrates it all, and it's really, really well written. Like, so, and if you read the screenplay or the novelization, I mean, it's really good, especially episode 3, man. It's like even the critics have come around and said, you know what? Wait, episode 3 is actually really, really good. Like, it's actually on par with the originals. And I'm talking about like the worst of the worst OT-Andies some of them will admit that episode 3 is actually really, really good. So
episode 3 of those prequels would be the one that I would want to watch the most.
There you go. Well, so I can understand that. So, because I mean, if you go back, Ico, well, maybe we'll do a watch party someday. The opening of episode 3 is so good. It's like one of the best openings in all of Star Wars. It's just like, it's like everything you fucking want, dude. It's like, do you remember?
Yeah, because it jumps you right in.
Do you remember? Yeah, because it's like the drums. It's like dun, dun, and it's like the ship's just flying. It's like all the fucking lasers. It's just like a big space battle dogfight going on. Like fucking, it's literally Star Wars, and it's just going on. It's so fucking perfect. And I'm just saying, there are moments like that in the prequels that are they're just. I think personally they should be worth any bad wooden acting or whatever you want to call it. Me personally, I don't think it's bad, but like if you think it's bad, like all those good moments should be worth it, because it's like it's Star Wars, and that's what Star Wars is about. And it's really about the whole story, like the whole thing, like with good and evil and all that. I think it tells.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question because I have quite a strong opinion on this, and I'm quite curious to see what Icosiol thinks. Do you think you look upon the prequels in a negative light because of the overuse of CGI in
a lot of people
instead of practical effects?
For me personally, that is a factor because I'm such a big fan of practical effects.
I was just gonna say, like, I love practical effects, and I think that if they could have like brought the practical effects to the modern age, then they could. Yeah, I know, but like
they had more practical effects in Episode 1 than any other Star Wars movie. It's a known fact.
Yeah.
You look it up. They had a ton of practical effects.
But I feel like with 2 and 3, okay, this is my thing. This is controversial. I feel like with episodes 2 and 3, right, he could have just spent more time between releases of movies and worked on it more so that he could make it look as good as the CGI did, but with practical effects. Now I understand why that it wouldn't work for some scenes, like the opening of Revenge of the Sith. How the fuck are you gonna practical effect that? I don't know. But like, I prefer practical effects, and I think what makes like okay, let me give you an example right here. A New Hope, the Cantina scene, right, where they walk in, it just all feels so natural and real, right? But then you know, like, compare it to, I don't know, Episode 2 with the Death Sticks guy. Not him, but like, you know, when they're in that bar.
Yeah.
The bar, it just feels synthetic. It just doesn't feel as real.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. I'm not able to be as immersed in this like universe because it's all CGI. Well, and I feel like okay, George did a good job with the CGI. He really did. He did. However, I feel like he cut corners by choosing to do CGI rather than take a little bit longer and use practical effects, which would have like brought it home more for me personally. But I still think they were good movies. I just think
it's true that with CGI you can do a lot more, and I think that's what he was going after. But to do a real good comparison to what you're talking about is Return of the Jedi, the original unremastered stuff, where the band was all a bunch of puppets. Mm-hmm. And then he changed that to they were all CGI and getting in your face and doing some 3D kiss to the camera, and it was just like, whoa, what the fuck is going on here?
And I'm saying, like, that's what I mean about goofy stuff, though. Even when they were puppets, they were singing that goofy ass song, and that was in the originals, man. And that's just as goofy as anything in the prequels. So I don't want to hear.
And now you know why I don't like the prequels.
My God, no, I love it though. I love the over-the-top goofiness because it's like it's such a serious story, right? But then you have these moments of goofiness that makes it feel like not so depressing, because it's like there's some depressing shit in the Star Wars. You know, the guy, the fucking Anakin, literally kills a bunch of little kids. But then it's like, so you got to have that like goofiness too to kind of even it out. And like Star Wars doesn't feel like a dark show or movie. It does, like a dark universe, you know, despite that there's a lot of evil stuff that happens in it. It doesn't. It feels like a fun like movie, and that's why, because there's like those goofiness sprinkled into it. So
I think that the originals and anything that's set in that time should really feel fucking depressing, right? It's the Empire that's in control. That's how it should feel.
Right. Yeah.
I understand why the prequels should have a different feel.
Right.
And I actually appreciate that in the prequels. that, hey, yeah, this totally feels like a different world because this is before the Empire, right?
It's clever.
So I agree with you on all that stuff. But my main gripe, I don't think the acting was great, and I think overall the entire prequels could have been just created a little better. That story could have been told a little bit better.
All right.
And it wasn't, I don't know, it just didn't meet expectations of what I had already seen.
I have a really good question to ask you both, but we'll do it one at a time. So I'll do ℂ𝐻𝔸ℎ𝕼 first, and then I'll ask you the same thing, Rage. So, if you could make the prequels perfect, right? Like fix all your issues with them, what would you do and how would you do it? I'm going to ask you the same question about the originals, Rage. So think on that while he's answering this. Like everything you find wrong with the prequels, you're now George, right? And we're going back in time. Fix it. Make it how you think it should be. Exactly how you think it should be. Because there's no limits. You're George. You've got money. You've got everything. How are you doing it?
I'm gonna pass.
That's what I'm saying. It's a difficult question, right? Everyone shits on George. Everyone shits on George, but it's a difficult question. And when you ask people, they don't know.
Yeah.
No, so here's the thing. Here's the reason why I say pass is because you're going to have a lot of silence, because that is a very in-depth question. That is a question that requires a lot of thought.
Well, maybe Rage could answer his side while you think on it. Maybe
that's going to be tough for him though, because he loves the prequels.
Yeah, I love.
He's probably thought about it before though.
About the prequel, like things that I would change.
So then, wouldn't he have to change what would make the sequels better?
No, not sequels.
Isn't that appropriate?
We are not touching the sequels. They're dead.
Yeah, sequels don't exist, so we're not even talking about those.
Okay.
So
if you could change the originals in any way, like whatever you think's wrong with it, you can fix it. Whether it's CGI or whatever the fuck, there's no limit. Do it.
Okay. So.
And there are no wrong answers. You're the director.
Right. I would make them blend. So again, the prequels and the original trilogy, they do rhyme, and it's perfect. And that's the best thing about all of Star Wars. But there is a distinct tonal, atmospheric difference between the two. Part of it is because, like we've said a billion times already on this episode, that it was before the Empire took over, so it's a little lighter during the... that's fine. But there are certain keyer things that I would blend between the two. So if you look at Knights of the Old Republic, I believe there's a reason why Knights of the Old Republic is my favorite thing in all of Star Wars, more than any of the movies, is because it perfectly blends the best of both things, aesthetically speaking. You got a world where it's kind of dirty and gritty, but there's a little bit of niceness too, but it's a nice blend of it. Worlds that are like that, you go to Kashyyyk, you go to Manaan, you go to Manaan's real fancy and all that because it's an ocean city on the water and all that, and then you go to Kashyyyk and it's it's the planet of the Wookiees, so it's such a nice blend of everything. And then you got double-bladed lightsabers, but at the same time it's you're on a smuggler's ship that's literally it's like the Ebon Hawk. It is the Ebon Hawk. I mean, it's like the Millennium Falcon. It's the same kind of ship. You're with a smuggler, and you're with a guy who's a soldier on the fucking, and it's but you're a Jedi, and it's you're on this mission to go across the galaxy and find. It's such a perfect blend of the two. So what I would do with the original trilogy is I would add in just a few little things that make it feel more like we just came out of the prequels. Because the thing is, because they were made first and the prequels were made later, if you go from prequel to original trilogy, it's almost such a jump. It's almost a completely different universe, almost, tonally. So I would just do some things that blended together, maybe throw in a double-bladed lightsaber somewhere in the original trilogy. I don't know, something like that, minor.
I have a real good idea. I have something. And I have you always want. Okay. I have something you always wanted as a kid. This is a good idea. Right. So Revenge of the Sith when Luke goes to confront Jabba,
Yeah.
Han?
Yeah.
Right. I think what would have been excellent, it would have really like tied the two together, like 1 and 6 would have tied it together, is if, okay, so let's say it's before all that, right? So Luke's landed on Tatooine, and he's like, oh, I gotta find Jabba. Where is Jabba right now? Oh, he's at the pod races. Okay, episode 6 gets a pod race.
Huh.
You know, just a random pod race, like some people, and he watches it.
It's in the background or something. Like
yeah, so
he's watching
in
it.
the background. He's like, yeah, Jabba's watching the race, and Luke's in the distance watching Jabba, and he can see like, you know, Han and the carbonite behind him, like, you know, like a trophy following him around, and he's like, okay. And then Jabba goes back to his palace, and then we get that scene where he's like, hello Jabba, blah blah blah. We get that.
Right.
That would have been good. Because when you go to episode 1, it would feel like kind of familiar, like, oh yeah, but they did this in episode 6, and it's like it bridges them together. Would have been really good, and I know for a fact that you wanted to see pod racing in one of those movies, and you didn't.
Yeah, as a kid, yeah.
It would have been great. It would have been. I mean, back then, like when ℂ𝐽𝐸𝔸ℚ was a kid, wouldn't you have loved a pod race scene in Return of the Jedi? Like that would have been nice.
I mean, I got my pod racing. I had the whole scene where he was on the speeder bike.
Huh.
Yeah. But I'm saying that's good. But we can be better. We can do better. Like we can have that and then have this.
So I have an answer for your question, because and thank you, Rach, for giving me some time.
Yeah.
In my answer is kind of a gripe on modern filmmaking, modern being 2000 and forward.
Your George. Nothing you say can be wrong. This is your mythos.
Okay.
Make it.
Number 1, I would scrap episode 1. I don't think there's anything in there that is necessary for the story.
You're on my hit list. But carry on.
I will explain why that's a bad idea as soon as you're done.
Don't need it. Don't need it.
No, you're gonna hear it as soon as you're done.
No, so one of my gripes is there's too much explanation. It's kind of going all the way back to the very first hour of this when we started. There's too much being explained. Let the audience fill in the details. We don't need to, like, I feel like episode 1 was nothing but that. I don't think there's anything I don't need to know about midichlorians. I really don't. It's just let the Force be this mystical thing that these people get to influence.
You want less exposition. You want it to be left up to the viewer's interpretation. Okay, so it's more mysterious. Okay,
right. Let the audience fill in the details. It's like in horror films. You know, like if you ever watched the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that is not a very gory film. There's a little bit of blood here or there, but everybody thought it was so horrible and so gruesome because their imagination filled in all the blanks of what was happening. It's the same thing with, if you compare scenes in original Ghostbusters and the all-female cast Ghostbusters.
Never watched that trash, but carry on. You have to tell me about it.
So in the original Ghostbusters, there's this great scene where they've got their packs on for the first time. This is some amazing technology that's using some sort of nuclear thing that's going to be shooting a laser beam, you know, to catch ghosts. The only thing that was described was pretty much the name. He turned it on and they're in an elevator and they just kind of back up. That was actually a hilarious scene. Don't need to know how they work. They just work. Got it. Keep on moving. The female cast, no, we got to know that these girls are super brilliant. So here's a bunch of, mumbo jumbo explaining how the entire pack works. And it's like, I don't need to know this. And I largely look at episode 1 as that. I'm like, I don't need to know all this.
I know what your issue is now. I've put my finger on it.
Uh-oh.
You don't like the prequels because they don't stimulate your imagination like the originals did.
Yeah, that could be a big part of it.
Well, it shows it to you, as opposed to you wondering. The prequels shows it to you. Like, it shows you the imagination, so you don't have to wonder. Now, again, it's like different strokes, I guess, for different folks, because some people, you're never going to be able to please everyone, Ico, because if they did it your way and didn't explain anything, you get a whole bunch of people saying, well, I want to know this, and I want to know that, and what the fuck? So it's like, no matter what, like, somebody's not going to like it. Like, you know, it's just... It's just like the way it is.
And that's why you should be. And that's why you should be okay with people not liking the prequels.
Oh, I'm okay. I'm okay with it. I just can't understand, because it is a part of Star Wars. It's a part of Star Wars as much as anything else, because it's part of George's mythos. I just can't understand how some people can say that they're big Star Wars fans, but it's like you only like half of Star Wars. So,
I think. Okay,
you know what I mean?
I think this is his problem. I think the original movies.
It's not a problem.
This is my problem.
No.
Poor Ico.
His
Getting torn to
critique.
pieces.
I think
Bring it.
no. I worded it poorly. I'm sorry. I think.
I want to know what my problem is.
I think this is how it is for you. I think the original 3 is a long time ago in a galaxy far away, right? And then I think when you watch the prequels, because they're telling you so much and it's like not leaving much up to the imagination, I think for you it feels like in the Artemis Tau cluster in the year 5285, like they're just telling you everything. It's not mysterious. I think that's what it is for you. Like there's no mystery, there's no mystique, there's no like oh, I wonder what's gonna happen. Like you just, I don't know.
Here's the thing.
It feels too familiar. You need Star Wars to feel unfamiliar, and that's why it's exciting, because it's surprising. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, all I want to say to defend myself, because again, I get called out for being like, oh, you're hating on, like, people could just like what they like, and blah, 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 your love is love, Rage. And I'm like, okay, great. But listen, my whole point is, if you're an OT Andy or a sequel loving troglodyte, you can come on the channel and watch my stuff, and I won't, like, you come on the streams and talk to me. I'm not going to, like, throw you away. I wouldn't even be talking to Ico right now. Like, as soon as I found out, you know, if I really hated, come on, I don't care. It's fine. If you don't like him, that's fine. My only thing is, the thing why I don't understand it, though, because I personally, and maybe I'm just a fanboy, I don't know, I love Star Wars more than fucking anything, almost. Like, the only thing that comes close is, like, Dragon Ball. So I love Star Wars so fucking much. I think the story, the underlying story, what it's all about, I'm not talking about the acting, I'm not talking about the characters, I'm talking about, well, obviously the characters are part of the story, but you know what I mean. I'm not talking about all the little things and all the shit and the goofy Jar Jar.
What about the world?
The world and the story and what it's actually about. I think that is so good that it overrides any bad acting or anything you might not like about the prequels. Like episode 1, you said you would scrap it. I would tell you, here we go. The reason why that's a big mistakey, is because it is paramount. If you really, the whole point of the prequels, Ico, the whole point is to show how Anakin fell. That's the only point. And it's very important to show the separation from his mother. It's so important because that is where it begins. And that's where it begins for every person in this world, is that they have an issue with their mama. That is why people are messed up most of the time. It's because they were torn away from their mom, or their mom abused them, or they become like their mother because they resent their mother. And it all goes back to the mama. And Anakin didn't have a father because he was born in like immaculate conception of his mother because of the Force. That in and of itself is like, you know, parallels to the Bible and Jesus Christ and all that. You know, we don't even have to get into that. Like, the story
You see the mommy issues in episode 2.
Exactly. Yes, but you have
So you don't
to
need episode 1.
No, you do. You do, because you don't if you won't understand why he has mommy issues in episode 2 without a lot of exposition.
Can't be told that in a short flashback?
That would be like sloppy exposition, in my opinion. It wouldn't be that short of a flash. And that's the thing. Another thing, Ico, you know, if you're a real Star Wars fan, that they don't do flashbacks. That is not a thing that ever happens in Star Wars, ever. Because they don't do flashbacks in operas. They don't. It's an opera, it's ongoing, there are never flashbacks, ever. Never. And so to tell that exposition in like some kind of short, sloppy, like what Obi-Wan just saying, remember when we had to take you away from your mother, Anakin? Oh God, and it was so hard on you, my boy. Oh Jesus.
It would have been better.
It would have been shit. No, it would have been shit.
No, it would have been better that way. Because that's what Obi-Wan did in the original.
No, man, because
talking about his dad, or in Jedi.
Yes, because that's all you needed at that point, because the story was already passed.
That's all you need with Anakin and his mom.
No, because if you planned on telling the story later, sure, but he didn't. That was the point of the prequels, was to tell that story. So why would you skip essential parts of the story when that's the whole point, is to tell that? Like him, like winning his own freedom, he wins his own freedom. He gets, and then it's like, wait.
Promises his mom that he's gonna come back.
It's like his mom. He's like, is mom coming too? And it's like, well, sorry, I was only able to free you. And then his mom's like, you gotta go, you gotta do this. And it's like that scene where like he's about to walk away, and then he comes back and he hugs her, and he's like crying, and he's like, am I ever gonna see you again? It's like, you gotta see that. Like, that is important to Anakin's character. That is. It
also explains why the Jedi usually pick kids that are younger.
Yeah. Normally Anakin was way too old to be a Jedi. He was way too. They take them when they're like babies, when they're like 1-2 years old. He was way too old already. But they made an exception because Qui-Gon believed in him, and Qui-Gon is another very important character in the whole thing because he's the one that discovered Anakin. And it's like
Qui-Gon is a heavy believer in the living force, and the council heeded his guidance on that.
So the Chosen One myth that the whole story is based on, including the original trilogy, the Chosen One myth starts with Episode 1, and you can't tell it properly without the roots in Episode 1. You really can't. You need to see why Anakin had that attachment to his mother, because it was literally just him and his mom and Watto who owned them. And he won his freedom, and he left his mom. He got ripped away from his mother, basically. Not really ripped away, but like, he had what other choice did he have? Was he just gonna stay on Tatooine with his mom being a slave, or like was he gonna fulfill his dream to become a Jedi?
You don't need a whole movie to explain just that.
I have two questions, right? You're saying you would just delete Episode 1, okay? How would you do Episode 2 then, if you deleted Episode 1? And then also, because I don't think you can delete Episode 1, how would you remake Episode 1? I'm curious to hear both theories. I don't think the first one's I don't think Episode 2 and 3 alone would work, but how would you do it? And then,
you would have to have... So, starting Episode 1 with him at such a young age, I don't think was totally necessary. If you go through the originals, things were just mentioned, and we filled in the blanks from there, right? We don't need an entire movie to explain every single little detail of it.
But it was more than just that.
I didn't need to know about Darth Maul. I didn't have to know about any of that stuff.
It was more than just Anakin. It was also about how Palpatine got things working. It's actually more about that than anything, because the whole way he got into power was by blocking trade routes to Naboo. That was his plan, because he was the senator of Naboo. So he thought, well, if I block trade routes, like if I strike a deal with the Trade Federation and I block trade routes there, it's going to cause problems in the Senate that will get me a sympathy vote because I'm the senator there. And so I'll become chancellor. This is how he overthrew the Republic. It's the very first step in his grand master plan.
He's sowing the seeds.
You have to see how he did it.
I totally get all of that.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to make the prequels 3 movies, you could do so and have those first 2 movies as Anakin as a Padawan, and we can really flesh out what kind of relationship he was having with Padme. Whereas it really felt forced,
but in my
opinion, the way it happened.
If you start Anakin as a Padawan, then where's the emotional development? Who is he? Why is he the way he is? You've skipped a lot of years,
Right. There's a reason why Anakin's so messed up.
We skipped a lot of years with Luke. We didn't need all of his young.
Right, but Luke wasn't messed up. He was raised by an aunt and uncle who loved him and stuff, and they were a little hard on him. But
a regular guy.
He was fine. He didn't see it's and that's why he didn't ultimately fall to the dark side, because he had a good upbringing and he wasn't a messed up kid like Anakin was. So
it's all my issue in current movie making. I don't need those details. Okay. Let me fill in the blanks. I don't need to be shown something to have an emotion about something. I just need to be told what is going on, and then let the actor bring that out. Let the story bring that out. The prequels are holding your hand throughout everything.
Well, the whole point, like I said, is to just show how the Republic got overthrown and how Anakin fell to the dark side. That's the whole point of the prequels.
I get it, and I'm down with that.
Okay.
I just think it could have been done better.
Do you think the prequels are holding your hand, or do you think they're explaining it in a way that kids can understand while adults can also appreciate the movie?
I mean, I watched the originals as a little kid. I didn't care about that. I just wanted to see battles and lightsabers.
Right, yeah.
that's all you guys remember when you guys were a kid. And like you said earlier, as you get older, you start to see the nuances of, oh, okay, well, here's the Republic and, you know, Palpatine and all these political things.
Well, I don't know. At the end of the day, obviously, we're just going to agree to disagree. But I think that it's very essential to tell the story the way it was told. Obviously, no movie's perfect. Maybe it could have been better. Yeah, in some areas. But for the most part, like 99% of it, I think is like just fine. I think he told the story that he wanted to tell, and I think there's a lot of fun stuff along the way. Like there's great lightsaber fights, there's funny dialogue, there's the memorable moments. I mean, what else can you ask from a movie? I mean, I don't know. And the world building is the biggest thing for me with the prequels. I think the world building was fantastic. It just there's so many good worlds.
Can I say something about world building? Because you mentioned something before.
Oh yeah.
You were talking about the world building of the prequels, and again, it goes on to my details. World building is not about putting in all those details. You don't need to know absolutely everything that is going on.
No, you don't.
It goes back to exactly what I was saying.
No, I agree.
World building is putting out enough in there to make what you're watching make sense. Let the audience fill in the rest.
There is plenty of that.
It's going to make your world a lot more vast.
I get it. There is plenty of that in the prequels, though. Like, a lot of the worlds you see, like Mustafar and Utapau and, like, Geonosis, they don't really explain much about the worlds. You just go there, and they're the setting. And if you go into the books and the games and the novel and all this stuff, more is explained about, like, let's just say, like, in Episode 2, when they're, like, when the CIS is having their little meeting, and there's the banking clan. And all that's said is, like, the banking clan will, like, is on your side, or whatever he says, like, you know, who is it, Count Dooku, and he's like, you know, humble. Yeah, he's like, and the banking clan guy is like, you know, oh yeah, we're gonna help you, yeah, sure, and that's it. That's all it's explained. They don't say who the banking clan is, because if you go, and this is what I love about Star Wars, if you go deeper, the banking clan is like this huge fucking organization in Star Wars that, like, basically has all the fucking money, and they do all this shit that they literally funded the war themselves. Like, they're the ones that paid for all the droids and all the stuff, and it's like this whole thing, but that's not explained in the prequels at all. You got to dig deeper. So there is plenty of that in the prequels, plenty, and that is the biggest thing, and that's why so many games and so many books came out of the prequels, because there was so much stuff that wasn't explained on top of all the stuff that was. So it just opened up so many more avenues for the story to be even richer. I mean, Ico, again, man, like, I get it, you're Gen X, you and all that, but the golden age of Star Wars was like in the 90s and the early to mid 2000s, when, like, Force Unleashed came out, and, like, you know, Shadows of the Empire, and, like, oh my god, dude, KOTOR, and, like, all these games that were Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2. They were so good, dude. Like, these games were so fucking good, and they wouldn't exist without the prequels. They wouldn't have existed without it. So, like I said, you can have all the gripes you want about the prequels acting. I'll give it to you. But it's worth it. Like, for just what the prequels did to, like, society, and, like, all the good games and all the good media and just, like, everything, it was worth it. It was worth it. And I think that most, if not all OT Andy should be able to go back, watch the prequels, and say, you know what, like, yeah, maybe this one scene or all these scenes are a little, like, wooded acting, whatever you want to say, but it's worth it, because overall the story is good. It's part of a larger story that's, like, a really, really good one of the best stories ever told by human beings, and, like, so much awesome shit spawned of it, like, so much. And so it's like, there should be, like, at the very least, there should be some underlying appreciation for what it is, for what it's, like, trying to do, and what it, you know what I mean, even if it doesn't speak to you. I think you should have some kind of appreciation. That's all. Two
things. I think he could agree with us, because, Ico, in the original, do you remember what the original Palpatine looked like?
He was ugly as fuck. He was horrible. Yeah. They fixed him up. He looks better now, honestly.
You can't tell me that the original, like, I'm talking about the original movies. You can't tell me that the original Palpatine versus like the CGI version that they like put in was better.
It looks like a ball sack. It was horrible.
He looked like one of those frog enemies from Dark Souls.
Are you talking about? You're talking about the one that was on the image?
Yes, in Episode 5, the very first image of the Emperor that they ever showed in Episode 5, where like Vader gets down on one knee. He looked horrible, dude. It was awful.
I'm good with it. Yeah, no, I'm good with it. Totally good with it. I'm also totally good with the Atari graphic Death Star with the Death Star plan in Episode 4, was it, or was it Jedi? Actually, I think it was Jedi.
But couldn't you argue that it's nostalgia that lets you accept such an horrible problem?
Yeah.
I argued nostalgia was a big part of it earlier.
Yeah, he did.
But let me get onto a point. You said all those PC games wouldn't have existed without the prequels.
Oh yeah, well, a lot of them. Not all of them. There's plenty of that are just from the original trilogy. But
1983 had a fantastic arcade game.
Super Star Wars. I played them all. Yeah.
No, not even Superstar.
I played them all, bro.
1983, the one in the arcade. There's 1993. This is before the prequels. Yeah. You had X-Wing.
Yeah.
That was going back on the old DOS and Macintosh.
Oh yeah.
You had plenty of fantastic games. Star Wars TIE Fighter, 1994. And yes, I'm going through Google right now. 1995.
They're
Star
all
Wars
good.
Dark Forces. These were all fantastic games. You did not need the prequels for it.
No, but the prequel ones are even better, some of them. If not as good and even better.
Now you're just going on full opinion.
You can't tell me you prefer the original.
How could you say like a game like KOTOR, which is what I'm all about, is bad? It's not. It's one of the best games ever made. Let alone one of the best Star Wars games ever made. It's one of the best games ever made, and it's got things from the prequels and the original trilogy mixed in perfectly. So,
do you know why I can't say anything about those?
Because you haven't played them.
Exactly.
Right, and maybe one day you will. Maybe one day I'll get you to play KOTOR, and you'll see just how fucking good it is. Because it's so good.
Let's end it on something we can all agree with, right? But with a twist. Okay. So none of us like the sequels. Right, we know that.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's the only common ground we'll find.
Me and Rage know why we don't like the sequels, because we have our own opinions that we formed on it. I'm really curious if your opinion on why you don't like the sequels is different to ours, because you don't like the prequels. I know that the sequels are way worse, but I'm curious to see what your points of why you do and why it is and isn't bad. Like, why don't
So
the horrible shit ones.
Okay, so the sequels I didn't like because
just 7, 8, and 9. I'm not talking about any other movies.
Yeah, 7, 8, and 9. When I first watched 7, I came out of that going, I've seen this movie before.
Yeah, the carbon copy almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can't have this character that's as powerful as Kylo Ren that starts off that this dude stopped a blaster and let it sit there until he let it go. That tells me that dude is powerful as hell and loses in a lightsaber battle against this untrained chick.
Yeah, it's goofy.
Sorry. Yeah, I can't get into that. The only good thing about 7 was they killed Han. Wasn't expecting that. Cool.
It was a decent moment, like, because I thought
I like the unexpected endings.
Yeah, I thought that moment was okay.
I would say it's good. Okay, it's good and it's bad for two different reasons, right? It's good because it was like a shock moment. You weren't expecting it. It was done quite well. But here's why it's bad, right? They've killed off our favorite characters from the originals and they can't bring them back, and they died in these horrible movies that like have shit storylines, and we can never rectify that. That's what sits for me the wrong way. We can like Carrie Fisher is dead, and look what they did to her in these movies, and now we can never fix it. Like
that's what
just don't watch them.
Nah, well, you know,
it's whatever. I mean, you guys already said that those movies don't exist to you.
Right, yeah, it's not canon. So we all have like a head canon, and it's just kind of like, you know,
It's just annoying. It just feels like Disney spat on the actual like Star Wars fans. I just don't understand what.
So Ico, you have your own like headcanon then, right? Basically for Star Wars. Same thing.
Yeah.
So the prequels aren't canon to you?
Are
they?
No. Prequels are canon because George, like you said, George Lucas did it.
You know what?
I'm
happy. I'm happy with that. I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm so glad
I'll
that
take
you realized that. Like,
Thank you, man.
Even if you realize something that everyone at fucking Disney doesn't.
Thank you.
Even if you dislike something, it's still his vision.
Yes, it's still like what happened in the mythos, because it's like
if they made a new It the Clown movie and it was just completely different from Stephen King's book. Well, it's not the same then, is it? It's just not the same.
What are you talking about? It?
Yeah, I'm just saying if they completely diverged from the fucking source material, instead of calling it It, they was like, oh, this is What the Clown.
All right, so we'll have a 10-minute break, and the next hour and a half is going to be talking about It and Stephen King.
No, we're going to wrap it up now, but it was really fun, Ico. Last thing I want to ask you, or not even a question, but more that, so you said that it was like episode 7 was like a carbon copy of 4 almost. There were so many similarities and not done in a good way. Like, because again, in the prequels and the original trilogy, they kind of like rhyme. It's a good way they like do it. Would you at least give the prequels that it's not like a carbon copy of the original trilogy? It's kind of its own story. I mean, especially episode 1 is its own story. Like,
oh yeah, no, I would totally agree that they're completely different.
Yeah. So at the very least,
the story is different.
Yeah, at least they didn't do that. So, one good example of the rhyming though is like how Anakin, how he blows up the ship at the very end, and it's like a big circular ship. It's very similar to the Death Star, the Lucre Hulk. He goes in, he blows that up. So it's like, it's similar in that way, but it's not like so on the nose. Like how episode 7 was, where they literally just went in and they literally called it something that was like the Death Star. They in the movie they compared it to the Death Star and everything, and they just went in there.
Did he really do that though?
Yeah,
I don't think that's in my head.
They called it Starkiller Base, and it really hurt.
They did, but in the movie they like compare it to the other Death Star in size, and they're like, oh, it's this much bigger than the Death Star. Oh, well, we blew up that so we could do this, and it's like, oh man, like, oh, that's so bad. Anyway.
So, I have one final question, my last question to ask you both before we're done. So I think it's a good one. Right? Let's say none of the Star Wars movies have been made or released, right? I'm just talking about 1 through to 6. Because this is a constant, like, argument of contention between Star Wars fans. You're George, what order are you releasing the movies in and why? Are you going to do 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3? Or are you going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Or are you going to do like that really weird one where it goes 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4? Like what order are you releasing it in?
4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 3. Because the reason what makes the prequels good is that that wonderment, that again, Icosiol got let down for it, but some people didn't. Some people were like, yeah, this is all right. And so that's what you like. You want to see young Obi-Wan. Like, you know how cool that must have been for some people when it's like you always saw Obi-Wan as this old crusty dude, but then it's like he unveils the hood and it's like him. He's a young man, and it's like, oh my god, like that's Obi-Wan when he was in his prime. Like, holy shit! Like, how was that not cool? Like, that must have been so fun. I didn't get to experience that because, well, I kind of did because I was a kid. I watched episodes. I watched the originals, but not as much. I didn't understand it as much. Like, when I saw Obi-Wan, I didn't think, oh wow, that's young Obi-Wan. Like, I hardly even, like, you know what I mean? But for you must have known, like, wow, that's Obi-Wan. He's a fucking teenager almost. That must have been cool. I
thought you wanted to end this on a good note, on a happy note. We were almost there, then you had to ask this question.
I don't know.
The only proper way to release them would be 4, 5, 2, 3, 6.
Yeah, people say that. See, I'm kind of weird.
I love it.
I'm a weirdo, and I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would actually be okay. Like, the only reason it wouldn't be okay.
George himself says that's how you should watch it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well, yeah. because okay, I think if they were all made at the same time, right? So, like, there wasn't like big gaps in terms of technology and what movies could and couldn't do. If they were all made in the same time period, whether it was back in the 80s or now, I think it would be really like interesting to watch it go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because it's like episode 1. We know nothing, right? And then at the end, we're like, oh, Anakin, who is this kid? Like, he's born from nothing. Like okay. And then 2, and then 3, and it's like, oh my god, Anakin's like betraying Obi-Wan, and oh, what's this? He's a fucking.
It would be a lot
now?
like Warcraft, how Arthas turned slowly, and then in the end, it's like, you know, you defeat him and all that, and Wrath
he's
of the
like
Lich
a
King.
cyborg now, and then
Which
it's like,
Ico never got to do because he hates Wrath of the Lich King. But anyway.
So if you were gonna do it that way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think what you have to do is on the 3rd movie, you can't show Anakin surviving and going into the suit. Don't show.
Yeah. Okay.
Let it be one of those things where he was burned up. Obi-Wan walked away.
Right, and you don't know, and then when he comes out in episode 4, you're like, oh shit.
And it's like a flashback where you see the truth. That
and
was so cool.
Right, because then the twist in episode 5 would be even bigger, because not only would you be learning that this guy is Luke's father, but that it's fucking Anakin who survived.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Exactly.
That's gigantic, dude.
That's what I'm saying. If I had a button where I could just delete memory, I would do it.
That is how I would improve all of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for finally coming around to my point of view. I have won the argument.
No, you haven't. No, the prequels are still good. They're still good.
We're all Star Wars
underappreciated.
fans here. We're all winners.
No, nowadays, I'm telling you, after the sequels came out, it made people realize just how good the prequels are. And there are so many people that are saying, you know what, yeah, they're pretty good. And even more so. Like, the love for them has increased drastically over the past, like, several years.
Don't get old, guys. Don't get old.
Old man, I guess the horses are horses, boys.
Yeah, no, I thought you were a lot younger. I didn't realize that you were around as a kid when the originals came out.
Oh yeah, dude. I was born in '78.
The true OT.
Yeah,
you guys are sitting there talking to my old ass.
It's all right. We'll get there eventually, hopefully.
We got more in common with you than the kids of today. Kids of today are fucking.
I feel sorry for the kids of today that are growing up on the sequels. It's like, oh my god. And then they'll be like,
yeah, right.
And then they'll be like, oh well, you know, they're pretty good. It's like you throw all the facts at them, like the plot holes, and that's the thing. It's like the prequels don't have that many plot holes in them really that are like major, that like do a disservice to the mythos of the entire story. The sequels do. Like the whole fucking hyperspace ramming thing. Like, if they could do that, why didn't they just do that with the Death Star? Why didn't they just ram a whole bunch of ships into the Death Star on hyperspace then, if they could do that? You know,
you would just make big objects that could do that.
Yeah, that are unmanned, like remote controlled, and that'd be a whole war strategy in Star Wars. You mean to tell me that this bitch is the first one to think of it in all the thousands of years that Star Wars is? Come on, dude. Come on, man. Like, it's so stupid. It's horrible.
Think about the technology that they have in Star Wars. I mean,
exactly.
Just look at Starkiller Base.
Yeah.
Right? At that point, I don't think you should be having wars.
Right.
Because you can blow up planets, for God's sakes. Why would you get into a war?
Right. It's like the myth. So it's like while the sequels do a net disservice to the mythos, the prequels do a net positive to the mythos. Like, overall, it enhances it and makes the whole thing better. That's just my opinion, I guess.
That's what the originals did right, that the sequels got wrong when it comes to, like, you know, the orbital station thing. Because, like, the Death Star is imposing, it's scary, but it's also slow and it takes time. Like,
they gotta, like, charge it up. It's like a whole thing.
To get to where it needs to be takes time. To, like, charge it up takes time. Like, Starkiller Base is just like, oh, we'll just go there now and blow it up. Like,
no, they don't go anywhere. The laser has like a hyperspace ability. Like, the laser itself warps through hyperspace and then blows up the planet.
It's so dumb.
Doesn't even make any sense, like, scientifically speaking. Like, well, it's all sci-fi, but you know what I mean. Like,
well, yeah, actually, yeah. Let's look at the physics of this. So this thing has to go to some solar system. It has to drain a star, which would actually make it go supernova, wherever the hell that star killer is. Yeah. It then would have to fire from one solar system all the way over to another one, and stars are not close.
Oh yeah, no, they're very far. But that's what I mean. Like, the laser. That when I looked it up, it said that the laser can go hyperspace somehow and then blow up shit that way. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Dumb.
Just wacky.
It's all dumb. It's all stupid. At
like,
least we can agree with that.
And it's like, oh, well, you're going to say that in like a universe where, there's already like the Force and lightsabers, and it's like, well, yeah, because like, sure, it's sci-fi and fantasy, but it's grounded in some type of like reality. Like it's grounded in some kind of, what would you say, like a universally accepted like rule or like law of like how that universe works. So you can't just suddenly do this like extra over-the-top wacky shit that completely like diverges from that, and then say, oh well, it's okay because the rest of it is over the top from our world. It's like, well, no shit. Like, but
and why are people in space wearing World War II bomber leather jackets and goggles?
Yeah, what the?
Doesn't make any sense.
I'm
telling you,
No.
I give it 5 years until Disney makes the Force gay, and I'm done.
What?
I'm telling you.
They gay now.
Telling you, that's what.
Well, the fourth is all.
Did you hear
It's
about?
a woman.
Did you hear about? Did you hear about Acolyte? They renamed the Force to the Fred, and they completely shat all over the fucking Chosen One storyline that goes through the originals and the prequels by making it these two random like girls. Like, this is so dumb. It's just dumb.
Ico, if you knew the depths of how terribly they're destroying the mythos of Star Wars, you would give the prequels a big old hug in comparison, because it is like so bad in comparison. It is just,
well,
bro.
If they're doing that, then yeah,
It's
I would
bad.
probably then look back and go, okay.
That's what most people are doing. That's what most people are doing, man. Thank you.
That's probably why people are going, all right.
You know what
Yeah,
I forgot
because
to
it's
say?
like really bad.
I'll let you tell him. I forgot to mention this. Tell him how what they did to Cardi Mundi.
Oh, so ℎ𝔸ℍ𝔸℉ originally, what was it?
How it happened in the prequels versus what the fuck they did.
So in the prequels, when they first bring, or when the whole thing happens between Maul and Obi-Wan, how they fight,
Yeah.
and and he's like, well, the Sith have been extinct for a millennium, right? And that's what ℎ𝔸ℍ𝔸℉ says. And narratively speaking, for the greater mythos of Star Wars, that is true. The Sith haven't been around for over 1,000 years. It's all part of Bane's grand plan, Rule of Two. It's like real deep shit that you got to read the books and all that in order to understand. But, and again, see, the prequels did not explain that. It just slyly mentions the Rule of Two, slyly mentions that the Sith have been extinct for millennia, doesn't expand on it. You got to dig deeper to find that out. You can make up your own things about it too if you don't want to dig deeper. But either way, like I said, the prequels do that. So anyway, so he says that, but then in this stupid show, he runs into a Sith, or a perceived Sith. So why would they make it so it like fucks up the continuity? And because this show takes place 80 years before episode 1, so why would he just 80 years ago run into a Sith and then 80 years later say the Sith have been extinct for millennia? Like, what, did you just forget? And so they tried to say, oh well, he lied.
Fat head. He ain't forgetting shit.
And
that brain.
it's like, so ℎ𝔸ℍ𝔸ℍ, one of the top Jedi on the Jedi Council, is just gonna lie. Okay, like just doing a complete disservice to his character, complete disservice to the whole thing, the whole story as a whole. It's like so, and just a little shit like that most normies, most people that like they're not like hardcore fans, they're just kind of like casual fans because they don't got time to be hardcore fans. They wouldn't care. And that's the only reason it gets any attention. But the people like me and Tomba here who are like hardcore, die-hard fans, like that fucks with us because like we actually give a shit about the actual narrative and the continuity and the mythos of the whole thing. Like we care about the canon. So like if you take a character like ℎ𝔸ℍ𝔸ℍ, who's like a lot of people's favorite character, and you like do a disservice to his character, it's like, yeah, it fucking sucks. But again, it's like it's too.
I can totally relate because they did that to Boba Fett for me.
Right. So it's too niche for most people to care, so that's why they get away with it. You see? So it's like, it's so fucked up, man. It's just like, so again, it's like if you could like really see just how bad they're fucking up Star Wars, you would look at them prequels and go, yeah, you know what? It's like, this ain't so bad, bro, in comparison. Because it's like for you, the original trilogy is like a 10 out of 10. And it's like what they're doing now is a fucking 0 out of 10, a 2 out of 10 at best.
I
wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10.
Right. Okay. Well,
yeah,
again, nothing's perfect, but I'm saying
I'd give Empire a 10.
Yeah.
And I'd give A New Hope probably
a 7.
I was gonna give it an 8. and I'd give
Can you compare
Jedi.
to 5
I'd give
and
Jedi
6?
also an 8.
What would you?
I try not.
I'll give
I
it.
try not to give anything a 7. I try not to give anything a 7 because everybody says 7. I feel like 7 is a cop out.
What would you
I'll
give?
New Hope 7.5, Return of the Jedi an 8.5, and Strikes Back's a 10.
What would you give episode 3? Because you said that you could go back and watch it.
Yeah,
Right. Think about this.
Remember the opening scene.
Remember
how good the
No,
lightsaber
I'm gonna
fights
give you-
are, dude. Oh my god, they're incredible.
Okay, I'm gonna give you an honest answer.
Obi-Wan
on
and
this
Anakin
one.
fighting on the lava,
Okay.
dude. Come on, bro, with all the explosions
I'm
going
gonna-
everywhere.
I'm gonna go back to my emotions on when I first watched it.
Okay.
Okay. I give episode 1 a 6.
Okay, episode 1.
That's yeah, episode 1. I give it a 6. That is how I felt after
asked
watching it the first time.
See, and that's not too bad.
Yeah, that's
It's
not bad.
right. The more I watched it, the more that number dropped.
See, that's
I
what
give it
happened
a-
to a lot
I
of
give
people
it a
for some
th-
dumb reason. I don't get it.
I know, but I didn't care about what anybody was saying about it. I was trying to defend it back then, but the more I watched it, the more I was just like, I can't do this.
I feel like
this
I
is not
feel like
good.
for Icosiol it was a 3 until Maul lit his second blade, and then it doubled for him. He was like, okay.
But episode 3, look at the GIF I just posted. Look at that, that is one of the most iconic scenes in cinema history, dude.
No, he's doing it in order.
I'm not there yet.
Okay,
Yeah,
I know. I'm just
doing
saying,
it in order.
just consider all the best things about it when you're doing
He's
your.
got a Revenge of the Sith boner right now. Okay, so
I'm also struggling with my phone to be able to. Okay, now I can see it. Okay, episode 2.
Yeah.
Episode 2. I felt
a lot of people consider it the weakest.
pretty
one.
good. Really?
Yeah.
Out of the
Yeah.
prequels, yeah. Out of the prequels.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that like it 1 better than 2, and myself included.
I try not to give anything a 7. I can't give it an 8, so I'm going to also give it a 6.
Okay.
But Revenge of the Sith, I do enjoy Revenge of the Sith.
Let's get
and
it.
I give that one an 8.
That's gonna do it for this
actually-
episode, boy. We did it, boy. See, now I thought, wait, I thought you were gonna say
No.
3 out of 10 and 2 out of 10. I thought you were
No.
gonna say they
No.
were god awful and you hated them like that.
I'm curious.
I'm surprised.
Is that rating because of the action or because of the story? I'm curious.
Well, no. So I'm giving you the rating on this is how I felt the first time I watched it.
Okay.
It's gone down since then, but I wouldn't put it as low as I would probably put episode 2 at maybe a 4, and I would put Revenge of the Sith at about a 6. On how I actually feel about them now. But when I first watched them in the theater, that was how I came out from it. Now, what I enjoy about Revenge of the Sith is I like the darker story. I tend to like dark stories, and that one definitely is.
Oh yeah.
Because you're watching this guy, this guy that all he wants to do is be with his wife. It just, he's so obsessed with protecting her and protecting everyone that it's just so awful to watch him turn into everything, everything that he just is supposed to hate. And then in my opinion, I think this is also one of the cool things about Vader. He's such a tragic character.
Yeah.
So much of his
It's like Arthas,
power,
man. It's the same thing.
yeah, so much of his power is really coming from just his self-hate. He knows what he became.
Yeah.
And I think he absolutely hates himself for it, and I think that's what makes him so powerful in the Force. But I also think the whole time he also limited himself. I think he definitely could have killed the Emperor way sooner than when he did.
He could have if he didn't get put in that suit, but the Emperor literally put safeguards in his suit to ensure that couldn't happen. He made his suit susceptible to Force lightning. Ico.
And
Little detail.
yet he still did it.
Well,
He
yeah,
was
in the
still
end, yeah.
you can't tell me when he picks up the Emperor in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
It wasn't explained, but I'm doing it in my head. He's holding him with the Force.
Yes. I was just about to say that he must have been using like the Force to keep him there, because obviously it's like the Emperor, like he took him by surprise too. Like, you know, he didn't fucking expect it.
No, I never considered that. I always thought it was just like the strength of his mechanical suit.
It could be a mix of all of it, but
I think that Palpatine is just so powerful that any other Jedi or any other Sith that would have attempted to do that, he would have just pushed him away. But if you look at that scene, all he could do was just shoot his lightning. And his hands are just out and he's shooting lightning at him, trying to kill him, and he can't do anything else.
I don't think Palpatine even expected it, because he did. There was so many instances in the expanded universe where he would like make attempts on Vader's life, tell him that he was worthless, tell him he could be replaced at any time, all this stuff. He spent years mentally breaking this man. I don't think he ever expected that Vader one day would go, you know what, fuck you, I'm throwing you down a hole. I don't think he ever expected
it was the love for his son, dude. The father. This is why the story is so good. It was literally the story of like the son going into the belly of the whale to save his father, like Pinocchio. It's that same thing, dude. It's crazy.
I agree. And like, you know, I totally get exactly where you're coming from as far as the story, because I do think that the story is well developed. Again, my only argument was I think that the prequels could have been created better, but besides all that,
was something
going back to Vader, the scene, the original scene before he grabs the Emperor, he never said no. Like, I can't believe they did that. That was so dumb. Having it in silence, and he's just you see the flashing of the lightning, and it's getting closer to Vader's face.
Yeah, you don't need to know.
You don't need to know. That's my whole point on this stuff. It was a beautiful scene. Looking at his son, looking at the Emperor, and you as the audience are just sitting there going, get him. You're screaming for it. Get him. And there's so much emotion, and it's so powerful in that scene for when he finally picks him up and throws him down there. That is just, it is so good, and I felt it was so good by the no.
You ready for this? It all goes back to that scene where he's hugging his mom in episode 1.
Yeah.
It all goes back to that, because it's a line of love that he had that goes all the way back to his mother. Because the reason he was attached to his mom, left her, in episode 2 she dies, and literally he's at the grave and he's like, I promise I won't fail again, right? By that he means he won't let somebody die on his watch again. What happens? Somebody dies on his watch again, he fails. And so that love that he had for his mother got passed on to Padme. He failed with her, and that love got basically just thrown into the void because he had nothing left, and so he became Vader. That love returned when he learned he had a son, and that's what saved him.
And our disagreement is how you think that we needed episode 1 to show us all that.
Yeah, it's the origins of the love for his mom. Yeah,
it's a preference in filmmaking, is what it is.
I guess.
Listen, this is gonna sound like a stretch, but it's really not if you think about it, right? A lot of what happened to Anakin happened to him because he did not have the stability of a father, right? So then he goes through.
Qui-Gon would have been that, but he died.
Yeah, he goes through.
And there's a tragedy in that is shown in episode 1 that's also very important.
Yes, so he goes.
There's a reason why. I'm sorry, Tomba, but it's like I gotta get it out. There's a reason why it's called Duel of the Fates. Ico, you know Duel of the Fates?
Yeah.
The whole reason why is because it's the fate of Anakin that's at stake there. Because it's literally just Qui-Gon and Darth Maul. If you like really know about it and you watch that scene where Obi-Wan's trapped behind the laser gate and it's just Qui-Gon and it's just Darth Maul and they're fighting and the music's not even playing anymore. It's just like this eerie like thing because it's like
everyone thinks that scene is about who's gonna win.
It's about the fate of Anakin.
They're deciding the fate of Anakin,
and in turn the fate of the entire galaxy, right? And the fate of all the Jedi and everything is in that one moment right there. And what happens?
Okay,
he fucking loses.
I'm about to shock you.
It's like so huge.
Okay.
It's so huge.
I'm about to shock you.
Yeah, go ahead. Here comes the Force lightning. Ico was palpy all along.
I can watch that fight over and over again.
Because it's so good, dude.
That it is. Yeah.
It's so good.
As atrocious as the rest of the film is,
atrocious.
That scene and the way it is done, and yeah, I've mentioned that before. How you said music goes away.
Yeah,
and it's
like
just
so
everyone
eerie.
sitting there watching through this red. Yeah, that was done so well.
Because it's like if ever there was pivotal moment where it's like the whole fate of the entire galaxy was just in this one moment, in this one area between two people, it's like that's it right there in that one moment, and it's just like that's so powerful, man. Like if you, like, it's just so powerful that alone deserves the movie to exist. I'm sorry, it just does.
So why did the Force do that? Why did the Force do that?
And that's the mystery that's still to this day. That's never explained. You can make up whatever you want about that because, well, yeah, it is about balance and all that, the prophecy.
But here's my theory.
Because there was a lot of Jedi, there was a lot of there were way more Jedi than Sith, so the balance.
Here's my theory, and you cut me off enough times.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm fanboying out.
I know. This is my theory. Okay.
Oh wait.
You know what? Guess what? I've lost my theory because you talked over me.
No, you didn't.
I've been Icosiol. I've been.
Oh shit! I'm sorry.
Fuck. Okay, no. I got it. Right.
He's got it.
Here's my theory. Right.
Here.
Anakin was supposed to bring balance to the Force, right? And a lot of people interpret that the same way. A lot of people think it means to restore the light to where it should be because there's darkness, right? Wrong. Sith ain't been seen for 1,000 years, or a millennium, whatever the fuck, right? A long time. So, who's in power right now? The Jedi. So in terms of the scales, which way is it tipped in favor of? The Jedi. So what happens? Anakin brings balance. How does he do that? Well, it was balanced way too much in the Jedi's favor, so you get the events of Revenge of the Sith, right? Which puts it back in the Sith's favor. Which then you get the events of 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
And then at the end of it, he restores balance once again.
Kills the Emperor.
Yeah, he kills the Emperor, which is the true source of evil. Like, that's what I'm saying.
Fulfills the prophecy.
He truly brought balance in ways more than one that people don't realize. Like, it's all part of his journey.
So it's just
I can totally buy that.
Yeah.
Also,
all cohesive story, all of it. That's why it's all necessary.
Disney, specifically Marvel, the Marvel side, they've done like this Marvel what if show, right? Where it's like these what if scenarios. I would love to see, because I really don't know. I would love to see a what if scenario where it's like,
where Qui-Gon lives.
Well, okay, two of them. One where Qui-Gon lives, right? And Obi-Wan, I guess, lives. It's like the ultimate good. And then one where they both die. Right?
Well, Maul kills both of them?
Yeah, it's Duel of the... Yeah, because Anakin's not there. He's not actually there physically, is he? He's in an N1 Starfighter. That's what I'm saying. I want to see both outcomes of the Duel of the Fates. Like the ultimate good and the ultimate bad. Because Anakin's the chosen one. So what happens in this scenario? How is he going to restore balance to the Force if the Sith are already dead, number one? Like, how does that happen? Maybe he becomes an even worse evil than Darth Vader to bring balance. Like, he becomes like way worse than what we've ever seen. That would be really interesting to explore. And then also, what if Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon got killed? And then all the Jedi were killed way earlier than Revenge of the Sith. Again, he's the chosen one. He's got to bring balance. He's got to become the ultimate good.
Well, that's why it didn't happen that way. It happened in the way that it had to in order for the prophecy to be fulfilled.
I know. I completely love the original way it happened because that's how it's supposed to happen. But I'm really curious to see what this would be. But you know what though?
I think that would be pretty neat.
I don't want Disney to do it. because they would just.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
they'll
they
fuck
would
it
fuck it up, right?
We'll
So
fuck it up.
I would want George to do it, but that ain't gonna happen. So
It'd be some fucking sparkle troll, gay trans person.
yeah, Anakin's got like blue hair, and he's like, I'm all the Jedi. Like, fuck off.
yeah.
You know, pretty soon they're probably going to do a rainbow lightsaber.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's in
They
the
have
works
that.
right
already.
now.
They have that. They have that in Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor.
Oh, there you go.
Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah.
I wanted your opinion on.
I never got it in the
played
game. I don't remember seeing it.
But have you played Force Unleashed? First one?
Yeah.
Nope.
No, he hasn't played like probably hardly any Star Wars.
Okay, Ico. Wow, you should play it. It's the best Star Wars game ever, in my opinion.
Well, so
It's very prequel-esque.
I'm
though.
probably. I got a real close friend of mine who wants me to play the MMO. What is that? Knights of the Old Republic or whatever it's
No,
called.
it's called SWOTAR. It's based on. I would play KOTOR first.
Yeah.
If I were you, I would play KOTOR first and then play that.
Yeah,
it's based on that
like,
world.
It's probably not going to happen.
Oh yeah, probably.
Like anytime you see me on playing video games, I'm probably playing StarCraft, and that's about it. It's like I'm so involved with my main hobby being role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, and like
Right.
running that and doing a bunch of writing. That's pretty much what my spare time is.
I know
What
what you do. If you don't have the time to play it yourself, you could watch Rage's playthrough of it.
Ha.
There's a story's in there.
So anytime he comes on, like I always try and like pop in there. There's times where I don't say anything and I'll just see what you're doing, and then I'll disappear.
lurking.
But sometimes I'll say, "Yeah, I'm
You
lurking."
lurking. I'm gonna start typing at Ico and see if he's in there now. I'm gonna jump
chances-
scare him. I'm gonna be like, I know you're there. I can smell you.
The chances of me actually watching at that moment, I don't know, but I still watch from time to
Well,
time.
that's what I'm saying though. Like, I mean, if you're busy, fair enough. But if you're on the shitter or whatever the fuck, you got a spare 5 minutes, pop it on.
I think most of the time I'm watching
Well,
when
it's
I'm driving.
Well,
So I'm sitting there
Yeah.
texting and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm driving."
yeah, it's already it's already saved. Like I save all my live streams and stuff, so you could go back and like watch it. If you ever want. I mean, it's not that important.
It's my favorite game. I think it's the ultimate blend because of the timeline, right? It's right after Revenge of the Sith, but before A New Hope. It's the ultimate blend of both prequel and original.
Yeah,
It's Rogue One.
It's really good.
Yeah,
It's really
well, it takes place
it's got a
before
great
Rogue
story.
One too.
It's got a great story. It's a George Lucas original. It doesn't shit on the originals or the prequels in any way. It doesn't disturb any of the like established canon. It's his own
It
little
explains
compelling
how the
story.
Rebels got started, basically. Like
In
the origins
which
of the
one?
Rebels.
Force Unleashed?
The Force
Star
Unleashed.
Wars: The Force Unleashed 1. Do not play 2.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about two.
Oh,
Don't
that
worry
bad,
about it.
huh?
There's a 2. It's not that great. It's okay, but it's not that great.
Not that great. The story's kind of mid and
Mid.
Hey, wait a minute. What was the character's name in Force Unleashed?
Starkiller.
Starkiller.
Also known as.
And then
that
they
was his-
named
Yeah.
the base in the sequel Starkiller.
Yeah. Well, because
Yeah.
okay, so this is a fun fact. The original name of
His
Luke was
original
going to
name
be
was Starkiller.
Starkiller.
Yeah, based on the Ralph McQuarrie concept art.
Yeah.
Well, that's not very heroic name, but okay.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
why he went with Luke. So.
Well,
Yeah.
here's another fun fact. Everyone had lightsabers in the original concept, including the stormtroopers. They had like white batons of light. It looked like a flashlight that was like pointed at the end, and it was all white. They were all white sabers. It was really weird.
Yeah, the original concept of Star Wars are pretty wild. Okay, well, I mean, that was great. I'm glad that you don't hate the prequels as much as I thought you did. I'm glad about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I gave that impression.
You
but-
did. I thought you were like hardcore, like fucking wouldn't even like give them the time
He
of
just has
day.
problems with it. That's okay.
I mean, episode 1 is the one that if there's one where I'm just like, yeah, no, don't need to watch it. It's episode 1.
It's so bad because that's mine and his favorite.
Yeah, it's
movie.
my own.
It's like,
My favorite.
you really put in the knife into the fucking
I
roof
know.
when you do that. Like, Jesus.
I'm sorry.
Alright. Well, because that's the one where like I watched the originals when I was a kid, and like I thought they were
Same.
all right, but I was looking for that pod racing. And that was the one that like really captured my little boo-boo baby imagination when I fucking tuned in and I fucking saw the lightsaber scene and the fucking pod race and everything. I was like, oh my god! And that's what really
wait.
captured me.
Ico, you saw 1, 2, and 3 in the cinemas, right?
Yeah.
Oh my god, you're the only person, living being that I talk to that can relate to this. What was the audience like when he lit the second blade?
There were verbal cheers and gasp. Like
I'm feeling rage because I saw the Avengers movies in theaters, like, you know, the one with Captain America like lifting the hammer and whatnot, and then coming through the portal. Nobody screamed, and I mean they all screamed. Don't get me wrong, but no, it was not comparable. Like the screams when Darth Maul came on, the thing, people were jumping out of their seats, throwing popcorn everywhere, falling out of their chairs. It was nuts. It was fucking insane.
I don't remember anybody doing that, but I just remember.
The UK just goes hard. I don't know where the fuck you're from. Like Bumfoot. I don't know.
So I was watching it in California, but it was like when they pulled out the lightsabers and all of a sudden the one end comes out, you hear people like start to cheer, right? They're like, yeah, and then all of a sudden when the second one came out, everybody was like, whoa,
what?
Yeah,
like losing.
Yeah, and then Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon's like, we'll take care of this. I'm telling you, that movie, that specific scene on that specific day in that specific cinema when I was like 7, it's like it's my core. It's my, like, okay. Think of your favorite memory of all time. That's mine.
I told you.
Oh,
that's a great scene, and that scene I can watch over and over and over again.
I'm saying, like, so there are.
It was so good.
So you can't say you erase it then if there's something that like it gives really good value just to people.
I told you I gave it a 3.
Well,
I didn't give it a 0.
Well, there you go. See, so then you can't
like
say you'll erase it
originally-
then.
Originally, it had a 6, and that was because.
You can only erase a movie if it offers nothing to anybody, like nothing but misery. You know, like it's a good movie.
Take solace in the fact that one of your favorite films and the exact scene that is your absolute favorite scene in all of cinema that you have ever watched
is yours from that as well.
Exactly.
All right,
Yes.
I'll take it.
Yes,
and I
yes.
got that on recording too. All right, we're done. But thank you, Ico, for being on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was fun.
The very
That was
rare
good.
occasions we get to. And yeah, thanks for being here too, Tom.
You're welcome.
Alrighty, guys. And if you guys want to add to it, you know, comment section and let us know what you want the topic of the next podcast to be. I am going to try to bring these back a little more regularly. Yeah, so until next time, Box Bros, me and everybody will catch y'all later. Peace out.